First, thank you all for jumping in and joining us today as we continue the Lightedge client webinar series. As you can see, we're excited to discuss hybrid threat defense. And I'm very excited to introduce our team today. We have an experienced team gathered, and we have a special guest here with us as well from our trusted partner, SentinelOne. So let's kick it off with some quick intros. Kim, I'll start with you, pass it over to Bill, and then Scott, I'll let you bring us home. Kim, would love a quick introduction and get the audience familiar with yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'm Kim Scott. I am the product manager here at Lightedge, and I have had the privilege of working on our Q4 initiative, which is the EDR MDR offering we are going to discuss here today. Alongside me, I have Bill and Scott, and they've been integral in helping me develop this partnership and offering. I'm very excited to talk to everybody about today.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. Bill, would love a quick intro and some of your background.
I'm Bill Fitzgerald. I'm the director of security here at Lightedge. I've been in security for 15 years now, from small startup companies to very, very large organizations. I've worked very closely with Kim on defining what this product should look like and working with our partner SentinelOne to bring you the best that is in endpoint detection and response.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill. And good segue. Scott, thanks for hopping on. We're thrilled to have you and very appreciative of the partnership we have with SentinelOne. Likewise, would love a quick background and intro to the audience.
Oh, thanks very much for the invite, Sean. It's just a privilege to be here, and I'm super excited about our partnership with Lightedge and the service offerings that are moving forward. It's just really, really exciting stuff. As you mentioned, I'm Scott Rich. I'm the senior MSSP security engineer for SentinelOne. 20 years security vet, 25 years of IT, and I came from mostly operations, red teaming, government, and Microsoft before joining SentinelOne, where I was part of the information protection team and monitoring users, worldwide, 250,000. So, but I work with mostly our most strategic partners, helping them refine their service offerings and incorporating SentinelOne technology into their business and making it most effective for them. So that's what I do.
Perfect setup for the conversation today. So thank you all for joining. We'll get started with a quick agenda here. We're going to hit the future of IT, which you can see right here, the hybrid first approach. We'll jump into managing threat defense, the specifics of EDR, MDR, and then end with with some use cases, right? What are we seeing in the field? And open the dialogue from there. As always, this is intended to be collaborative. More of a fireside kind of chat than it is just a formal presentation. So please drop any questions you may have in the chat, and we'll do our best to address in real time. So thank you all for hopping on. Kim, would love to turn it over to you to kind of kick it off.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. So everything right here in front is very important. There's 4 items I want to call everybody's attention to, which is the unified protection, the multi-cloud visibility, the cloud native integrations, and the fully autonomous agent. So these 4 things I think are great starters for us here today. Something I'm very proud of with this partnership with SentinelOne is the unified protection that we have ready for our clients. So when we say unified protection, what I mean is it's one platform, one agent. This secures all of the endpoints, servers, laptops, cloud workloads. Scott, do you want to help me drill into that unified protection? It's a sexy word, but what does that really mean for our endpoint coverage?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons is why customers are starting to migrate a lot of their business operations into the cloud. And, the ranging from it's going to be reduced cost, reduced operational overhead, reducing their risk exposure. And it also helps in, disaster recovery planning, business continuity, all these other kinds of things. Well, this does open up some additional security challenges for our various customers. And protecting some of these services has been a bit of a challenge over the years because if an attacker is able to get a foothold in a particular service, well, then they can pivot directly into their legacy style of environment. If they're running a hybrid of Active Directory and Azure AD or Microsoft Entra, then being able to move laterally from their cloud services down into their actual environment where real damage can be done. Being able to tell a contiguous security story around these types of services is so huge for our customers and our partners, such as yourselves.
Yeah, I think bringing everything just under that one pane of glass is so important, especially as we embrace that hybrid cloud, environment. We have so many bits of information, alerts, policy changes, just kind of living in different areas. As we start moving into that multi-cloud visibility and cloud native integration, something that attracted me, to SentinelOne, to this partnership was, I think it's on the website. It says, I'm trying to remember it exactly. It's like we do cloud or we are cloud. Which I thought was really interesting because it speaks to that seamless integration. Could we maybe touch on a little bit briefly? I know we'll get into it as we go into the webinar more, but the Azure and AWS pieces, like what's that seamless integration look like there for our multi-cloud folks?
So there's really two main components for it. And the primary piece is being able to identify configuration issues and identifying risk as a part of your federated cloud services and for your authentication services. Okay. So if you've got these two different components, right? So with our CNAPP, which is our cloud native application protection platform, we're actually able to scan and actually identify configuration issues, security gaps, and even perform some limited type of red teaming against those particular services to identify risk and then help, mitigate that particular type of risk. And then on the other side, we are able to also scan Microsoft Entra to be able to look for, again, these same types of configuration issues over permissions, accounts that don't expire, these types of things. And where this all kind of ties in is misusing of identity is really, really huge, right? So once an attacker is able to get a hold of an identity that can actually cause either greater damage or even, worst case scenario is that they just sit in the environment and then they just steal information and they, do perform additional recon before they finally just run the Hail Mary and then cause, generally irreparable damage. Being able to detect these different types of attacks and identify the risk, close the gaps. Security's always been more complicated than just simply, you install the service and you're done. Right. So we like to be able to give you all of these individual tools to not, identify the risk, mitigate the risk, and actually respond to a threat in real time.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a really huge superpower now that we have, at our fingertips. And the last superpower I want to talk about was the fully autonomous agent. So this one's really cool because when you read that, it screams to me, it's AI powered. That means that we are making the human job a little bit more quicker, faster, and more informed. What do we really mean, though, by a fully autonomous agent on that endpoint? Does that mean no human interaction whatsoever? How does that work?
That is a great question. And it's one of those things that's really set SentinelOne apart for the better part of a decade. Okay. I mean, we've had an autonomous agent for Windows, Mac, and Linux for a very long time. It's something that we're very good at. And what we mean by this is, lots of people say that, we've got AI, we've got machine learning, we've got, because it's the corporate buzzword bingo, right? That if you've ever been to a trade show, you actually get to sit around and listen to. And what this means is that our agent is contextually aware of everything that's going on the endpoint in real time as it's happening. And it's looking at a contiguous chain of events in context, which means that it's identifying actual behavior rather than comparing to a particular signature. Now, there's other people out there that that they prefer the model of utilizing a sensor on an endpoint that is throwing massive amounts of events up into the cloud, and then you've got human beings that do things in the event that a threat is detected in the environment. And we can do that, but we felt from the beginning that it was vastly more important and effective to treat each individual endpoint, whether it's connected to the internet or not, that as its own separate entity. So you actually have a virtual analyst that's on that endpoint, that is looking at the activity on the endpoint. And because we're collecting that data and looking at it in context anyway, we're actually able to, our agent, let me clarify that, is actually able to utilize that chain and that entire threat as a roadmap to mitigate that threat and respond at machine speed, not cloud speed. So the capabilities for automated remediation are just absolutely huge. But you can still choose to remediate it yourself. You can still choose to do that thing. We give our partners and therefore their customers the flexibility to adapt their response model to what they're to how they feel it should work, not necessarily forcing them into a particular play.
Yeah, no, that's a great point to drive home. We definitely have extreme flexibility here, and it's something that makes us just all that more ready to service our clients at no matter what level that they need or wherever they're at in their journey. Thank you for that. I think with the agent, kind of the AI agent, that teases up to start talking about maybe some landscapes.
Yeah, I'm curious as Kim and Scott, as you guys are kind of breaking that down there. Obviously, the attack surface is ever expanding right now, right? As workloads are finding their way, Scott, to your point, whether it's cost optimization, performance, et cetera, you still have to keep it secure. So just curious from both your perspectives, how do you kind of see that threat landscape evolving over the next couple of years?
See, Kim, you want to take that first, or you want me to jump in?
You know what? I'm going to let you go ahead and jump in. I think everyone here has heard my spiel. I want to hear yours.
Well, with every new type of technology that gets unveiled and, every new service, and right now everyone's talking about AI and digital assistants and things like that, right? There's going to be new threat landscapes that an attacker's going to be able to take advantage of, okay? And we're not necessarily, and I've noticed this over the last 25 years, is that we're not removing legacy, legacy risks in environments. I mean, you still have customers that run Windows XP. You still have Active Directory out there. You still have legacy on-prem email services, but now you're also having to contend with Microsoft Entra, Okta, Google Authentication. You're having to deal with AWS. You're having to deal with IBM Cloud. I mean, all of these individual different types of services that just keep evolving at a constant rate. And it's just a matter of time before an attacker works out a way, says, oh, hey, look at this. I can take advantage of this service and I can grab an API key out of it. I can start scraping customer data out of it. I mean, it's just a matter of creativity and time. And that's really all it takes. So, and we can go into some individual examples as to why, or of how this has been leveraged in the past, especially dealing with supply chain types of attacks. But save that one for later.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly stated. I really appreciate your looking at that, legacy infrastructure. I think that's something that's very true for us as a company. We know that threat landscape, it changes hourly. I mean, I think it's fair enough to say that there's something new evolving every day. But to care and to understand that there are still folks, on legacy systems, that doesn't leave them safe. That doesn't mean hackers or people who mean ill are leaving those things alone. It just means maybe they haven't gotten the API yet. Maybe they haven't gotten there yet. But it's you can't just worry about new. You have to worry about it all.
Well said, Kim, and I think that aligns, with the partnership with SentinelOne, and also in our DNA as who we are as an organization, with that hybrid first approach. I think that's well said. As we kind of transition on a little bit, I think, Kim, I think you were going to help us maybe understand some of the difference between just EDR and MDR. Do we want to jump into that next and kind of open up the dialogue here?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think as a product manager, it's important, in my role to understand what are the features that you're tasked with, delivering, and are they the right features that you should be delivering? So the first thing that I looked at was, what is EDR? What is MDR? For me, the way that I think about it is EDR, that's the software. MDR is the service. You can have EDR with just the software, but you can't have MDR with just the MDR. MDR needs an EDR. So for me, EDR is that software solution that gives you, those alerts. It helps you contain your threats. It sounds your alarm. So it's kind of your smoke detector. It lets you know that there's a fire, it's ringing, but it's up to you to call the fire department, or it's up to you to put the fire out. And that's kind of where MDR walks into the game. MDR is that service that adds on to that smoke detector, so to speak. MDR, that's the take action, that's the remediation, that's the firefighters, if you will. Bill, Scott, if you want to add on to that, I kind of took the cozy approach there, but if you wanted to add on, please feel free.
Yeah, so in order to have an effective MDR, you need to have the most information that's easily accessible and something. And what I mean by that is getting data off of an endpoint is relatively easy. Okay, I mean, I can write a PowerShell script that would actually grab a tremendous amount of information off of an endpoint and throw it on up to the cloud, and that's fine. Writing signature-based detection, again, not all that difficult to do. There's tons of threat intel information out there that you can find even on Reddit, for free. I mean, you can build a lot of the stuff. It's not all that complicated. But the core of the matter is that one, is that information easy to digest? Can you make heads or tails of it very, very quickly? Get that who, what, when, where, and how as rapidly as possible. Two, then being able to respond to that threat. Okay, getting alerts. Again, is this a true positive? Is this a false positive? Is this a nuisance alarm? I mean, and if this is a behavioral detection, well, do I have information where I can maybe even stop this information or this attack further up the chain? Okay, so it's not just a matter of, okay, yeah, I got a threat and I got an alert and I'm, the agent took a response action on it and I'm just wiping my hands and being done with it. And this is another part of the value prop that Lightedge brings to the table, is having that expertise and being able to take that more of a hands-on approach and in responding to the threats, and maybe even closing a risk exposure that they didn't know, that maybe the customer didn't even know they had.
Yeah, that proactive step right there, I think knowing before the client knows, done. That's case one, like that's mission critical. And I think that's the most important thing that this partnership brings to us.
And I think there's a question. It's probably a pretty good time to see if we can hit it here. So thank you for dropping that in the chat. The question is how will this product or service protect against Black Cat, 8base, or Everest ransomware threats, or similar threats? So thank you for dropping that into the chat, team. I don't know if anyone wants to maybe take the lead on kind of a quick response to the question.
I saw Scott's mouth turn up in a smile when he heard those.
He's ready.
The only reason that I smiled on that is because I've actually done extensive testing with Black Hat myself. So, and that's one of the things that we do at SentinelOne all the time, right? Admittedly, I don't get to do red teaming and playing with malware nearly as much these days as I used to. But every once in a while, I still will see something new, and I just kind of want to see what'll happen. Black Hat in specifically, and I can say this with most ransomware attacks, right, is that SentinelOne's remediation story, and I'm going to keep harping on that a lot because I really feel like it's a game changer with SentinelOne versus a lot of other solutions, is that we won't just kill and quarantine any of this type of activity, right? And because we're primarily behavioral based, we're not reliant on static signatures, because it's a trivial task to change lines of code or to change a hash on a file. It's or even obfuscate what a executable is doing. So keying in on the behavior, which doesn't evolve nearly as fast, is huge. And but the remediation step. So we've got kill and quarantine, we got remediate, and we got rollback. Remediate, what that does, and this is true for Windows, Mac, and Linux, although Black Hat's primarily Windows-based, but is that we can actually use the attack as a roadmap to fix all of the system-level changes that were made on the host. So persistence mechanisms and backdoors and all of these different types of things that all ransomware leaves behind, right? Because it's not enough just to have it detonate. You want to also be able to, keep your foothold into that environment, even if it's further up and into the chain. So that right there is absolutely critical. And then finally, let's just say, for the sake of argument, right, that an encryption process actually starts to go, and it's not just Black Hat. Let's just say any type of ransomware activity that starts encrypting files on the file system, and then maybe the agent picks it up later on down in the stream. With our rollback functionality, for Windows 7 and higher and Server 2008 R2 and higher, we're actually able to restore affected files to their last known good state with one click, or it can be completely automated, completely up to you. And that is also up to the MDR service, which, Kim, I think that is a good segue right to you.
It's perfect. Yes. Yeah, so service tiers, right? How do we package this up? How are we offering this up? So with all the minds here that you see on your screen and you're hearing from, we kind of made three offerings. There's a basic, a standard, and a premium. So from the product standpoint, to me, basic is exactly that, right? It is client has full access into their SentinelOne platform. The client has their full support, and their configuration assistance will help you along the way there, but you have the keys to the car. You can drive it wherever you would like. I think this fits really well for anyone who, they have a security team already. They're probably working with some experienced IT folks on their end, and they really just need a platform for management. Great. Basic is an excellent fit. Standard and premium is where you start to get more of the full picture, where more you start to get that end-to-end protection. So at the standard level is where I would first say, this is where the client will now get end-to-end protection. They don't have an in-house SOC team. They probably don't have many internal IT staff, maybe one or two, but there's a lot of gaps and they need some help there. So within the standard, that's where you're going to gain that co-managed experience, where you will get the very powerful S1 platform with the MDR services, but you will also have the Lightedge expertise and support as well. The next tier up, premium, this is it, man. This is the Corvette right here. So you've got EDR, you've got MDR, and you've got threat hunting. This one to me is an enterprise level. This one is, I don't have in-house SOC. I don't have an IT staff. I truly need that fully managed experience. I need to walk and worry about my business, and then everybody else over here worries about my cybersecurity posture. And that's what we can do for you here. So protecting your critical infrastructure. This one I feel is placed very well for our critical folks, finance, healthcare. These sectors, they demand proactive security measures, and they demand a very robust posture. So I think that tier speaks very good to those use cases there. So from those different tiers, obviously there has to be benefits, right? Because we wouldn't be doing it if there wasn't a benefit. So Lightedge, EDR, and MDR, what we gain from this partnership, what our clients gain from this partnership is exactly what you're seeing here. The 24/7 monitoring across all of the environments. Like we spoke earlier, we're hybrid cloud, right? So it's on-prem, it's in the cloud, it's in your server, it's on your printer, wherever it is. We can make sure that we bring that under one pane of glass for you. That real-time actionable insights with hybrid infrastructure. We just touched on that, right? We just showed you how that broad coverage, we can bring it under one pane of glass. Scott, I think you've been nailing it with the faster threat detection and response. We were just talking about that Black Hat, right? How long would that have taken just a human being to do? Weeks, months, probably, tracking all of that down, road mapping, figuring these things out. Faster threat detection and response.
Yeah, having had to do some of that stuff, I will say that I worked for a very large software manufacturing company many years ago. I think I alluded to it earlier, and Petya. That was a huge problem for everyone, and and if anyone's ever spent any time going through SIM data, tying across the firewall logs and the Windows event logs, and then of course any other security solutions, including access control logs, and you're trying to work out and exactly how an attack played out, then you got to come up with a response plan. It took an army of people to actually sit down and do it.
Well, let's segue in. I think we've hit a lot of topics. We'll just talk in maybe some general kind of use cases that we've observed. Recently, I think we've seen a rise in attacks, even targeted at, whether it's manufacturing, retail, e-commerce. It could be as simple as a phishing attempt, a phishing scam. And obviously the attack, is undetected, it sits, and then boom. And the impact, I think, again, recently we're seeing a rise in it. The impact is pretty simple, right? You're not only at risk of maybe some PCI data, some client data, but more importantly, you're halting the manufacturing or you're halting distribution, and there's an impact to the client, right? Your deliveries are getting delayed, or you're losing maybe the tracking on them. I think the setup is pretty straightforward. The impact obviously is vast. But team, I want to maybe open it up to you all as we've kind of heard from the industry on maybe this specific type of attack. What the potential value is, or maybe how we're seeing organizations now go on the proactive approach towards protection here.
I mean, for me, at the end of the day, anytime an organization takes that proactive step, that means that they're taking their business seriously. Like I just said previously, if you're setting yourself up in a security posture positioning that you can allow security experts to actually quote unquote, run that side of your business for you, so you can focus on the healthcare, the finance, the retail, whatever it is, I think that's paramount to the client's journey. So any use case to me has to be able to make sure that I get that client the benefits of what they are purchasing, and those benefits are them doing their day-to-day business, not worrying about the security items that pop up.
Yeah, and to kind of elaborate a little bit on this, and I'll tell you, I just got back from another partner meeting over in Denver last night, and I was actually chatting with a few of even of a few various MSSP and MDR partners, and kind of talking about some of the conversations that they've been having with customers and things that keeps them up at night. And I heard something that, quite frankly, I found very horrifying. And it was centered around that they had a lot of customers that were coming to them and saying, look, man, I just want to check this box for my cybersecurity insurance. It says I've got to have an EDR, so I want to buy your EDR. Just go ahead and get it installed, and I just go about my day. And I was just completely mortified that I actually heard something like that, because it's essentially like saying, all right, well, I'm buying car insurance to prevent theft of my car, but I'm leaving my keys in the driver's seat the entire time, every time I walk out of it. And all that does is it just drives up insurance costs for everyone else. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, then it kind of dug into a little bit further and said, well, wait a minute here. So if you're just simply worried about, your cybersecurity insurance, you can just check in the box. Okay, well, maybe they'll write you a check for any kind of a cybersecurity incident that you might have. But what about your employees? What are they going to do? What happened? Are you going to be able to survive a 2 to 3 week loss of operations? Or, if you're working a supply chain, are your customers going to be adversely impacted? I mean, it's never quite that simple. So these kinds of threat scenarios, I really want you to kind of think about this, in detail, especially, for the customers. What does this really mean? What would happen if I'm to get popped? I mean, loss of reputation, the cost, the potential legal liability. I mean, there's a ton of things. It's never quite that simple.
Well said. And I think the analogy is simple enough for even for me to understand. Don't leave your keys in the car. Right. And second, have a plan. Yeah. So well said. That was a good setup there. Anything else to hit here, or do we want to jump into the next example?
Probably go to the next one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I think we've hit it here. Obviously, the attack surface is expanding. I think this is maybe a little bit more specific towards, hey, we're starting to build out our business in the public cloud. Obviously, a lot of SaaS organizations maybe are starting there. If you're a business running some legacy applications, maybe you're refactoring an app or some new applications or work groups you're looking at building out there. Likewise, Scott, I was having a conversation last week at a lunch, and the security expert said, hey, do the hard things first, right? So even if you're just exploring in the public cloud, having the plan, having, governance in place, understanding how you're going to do it from the start is critical, right? So instead of, maybe, hey, we're going to go explore, see what it's like, then establish our framework. It's like, hey, do the hard thing first. And at the end of the day too, all you on the call dialed in, your clients are going to trust that you have that framework in place as well, right? So that's just an assumption or a ticket to entry to the marketplace. So I think this is really probably pretty specific to the public cloud. I think we wanted to maybe emphasize, the idea of whether you're starting from scratch or starting a new business, or maybe just moving some workloads for the first time. Having that plan in place is critical. Kim, go ahead. Sounds like you're ready to go. So jump on in.
Just to drill in what you just said, no matter where you're at, if it's a new system, you're moving workloads, or if you're doing legacy things, under that attack overview, we call out on this slide the misconfigurations. I think that's huge. Like that's a really big case. I think when we onboard new clients, not just for this service offering, but for other things, we see misconfigurations. So I think seeing those, identifying those misconfigurations, and then fixing them really sets up the client for success, and ourselves as well, because then we can support you to the fullest.
And just to kind of also tack on to really what both Sean, you and Kim are talking about, because the more I talk with you folks, that just I just can't stop smiling most of the time, because I think a common trap that a lot of MSPs, MSSPs, and MDR services fall into is they're more excited in selling products and services. And this is directly for you customers out there, is that whenever you're in a talk with a security provider, understand this very simple fact, and that is that you cannot just simply buy security. Okay, you can't just purchase your way into reducing your risk. All right, and always be wary of any provider that is more focused, that they spend more time selling you services and products versus actually trying to understand your environment and understanding your risk and trying to come up with a threat model for your business. And it's one of the things I love about Lightedge so much, especially with the expertise and that kind of a dedication. So just kind of a big, that's kind of a little bit of a soapbox moment right there. So
hey, no, that's perfect.
We love it. We love the idea of tailoring the solution, right? There's tools, there's widgets, and there's people and process, and it's like, hey, we'll tailor it to your need. Honestly, it's probably a pretty good timing. Thanks, Justin, for dropping in a question here. Team, I'll give you a second, and then I'll read it out loud as well. So it says a question regarding a specific use case the organization is trying to solve. And we're getting another question. So a specific use case on some security certification compliance requirements that call for software execution prevention on monitored service, basically applying a deny all, permit by execution policy to limit which applications executables can run on our VMs. Does the EDR MDR solution include this capability?
Well, when you say VM, I'd have to kind of get a better idea of, one, the architecture that you're running, the services that it's running, and I mean, are we talking about a infrastructure as a service? Is this a fully fleshed out virtual machine running, server 2020 or anything like that? If that's the case, then SentinelOne does have some limited capability to be able to prevent very specific applications from running. But the plain answer is that are we app locker? No, we're not. We don't have that capability directly into Windows, as far as it's like whitelisting or allow listing only the applications that are currently installed. Now, that said, Our cloud workload protection, on the other hand, absolutely does have application locking in it. And what that means is that, let's say you've got a containerized workload, and as a part of that image, that SentinelOne agent actually exists in that node. And if someone tries to change the configuration and then register a new application or a service as a part of that node will immediately get destroyed and rebuilt with it back to its default image. So the answer is it kind of depends. But as far as like an app locker type scenario, no. But we are, I'll give you a quick sneak peek though, we are actually working on that as we speak.
So Scott, with that said, say that there are specific applications on my Windows machine that I want to monitor for changes or block outright. How would I go about doing that in SentinelOne?
So there's a couple of different ways. Yeah, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. For example, is that you can do what we call watch lists in the EDR, right? So you can create, either literal or partial paths for executables, different types of names, and you can add in multiple types of criteria that reduce your false positives, right? Because the more attributes that you assign to a watch list, the more accurate it's going to be, right? And then you actually have a choice. You can either have the agent treat that as a threat and then respond to it accordingly, which means that it can do the kill, quarantine, remediate, rollback, any of those kinds of things. Or you can actually have an alert generated. So, for example, PS exec, right? Perfectly legitimate admin tool, but you're probably going to want to know if someone actually runs that in your environment or in your customer's environment, okay? So you could actually set up a type of, a series of, or a watch list for that kind of activity. You're not necessarily going to block it, but you're certainly going to know if someone actually runs it. And then you can respond to, in according to your customer's needs.
To follow up on that, Scott, let's say that I want to monitor for any, even an admin installing a new application. Is that something that we could do with the SentinelOne agent?
Yes, absolutely. Because you can do user group detection as a part of that particular user. Yes. Now, is it going to work? Now, of course, it's only going to be basically treating it as a threat. So I just want to make sure that that's perfectly clear, because but can you actually create a type of detection in the EDR for that kind of a thing? Yeah, you bet. Absolutely.
Awesome. Bill, Scott, anything else you want to hit on this slide, or maybe as the chat's unfolded?
So I did see someone talk about XDR a little bit, and if there is one thing that I've always been very, very clear about, is that I'm not a huge fan of marketing buzzword salads. So this is really where the rubber hits the road for XDR and SentinelOne. And that means that through our integrations, whether it's through ingesting data into our Singularity Data Lake, which is now called AI SIEM, or through our automated response actions or manual response actions that we can tie into third-party solutions, right? Like, for example, with Fortinet, or with Azure AD, or with Okta, or Mandiant, or a bunch of these other different types of solutions, right? You can act, or Zscaler, it's another good one. You can not only ingest data from these individual solutions into the AI SIEM, but you can also, in the event that a threat is detected, you can even take responses on that platform. Now, going into the details of what that actually means is a little bit beyond the scope of today's call, but I do strongly recommend setting up a meeting with Lightedge to actually kind of get into that a little bit more deep. But on the surface, know that the SentinelOne platform is an orchestration platform. Also, the intent is to be that single pane of glass for which our partners and MDR services can act, and even customers can go through and look at data or even create detections across third-party ingested logs and take action across these individual third-party services and stuff. So there's a whole lot to it, but just know that when we say XDR, we mean it's not just log ingestion, it's not just response. It is really the whole works.
Awesome. Thank you. And the last one, I want to be conscious of time here. We'll hit this quick, and please thank you for the questions. The team's obviously ready and willing to jump in. So if you have any more, please throw them in the chat. They've been wonderful. I think the last kind of setup here. Obviously at Lightedge, we have a lot of organizations that are in highly regulated spaces. Working with the FDIC, the OCC, NCUA, FFEIC. You name it, we probably got a client in any one of those kind of organizations, and often are perceived as high value targets. And the attacks not only are well thought out and planned, but also somewhat methodical in nature. So I think we just wanted to take a second and maybe hit the idea of advanced persistent threats, and just very quickly talk about maybe the level of depth that's required to invest at this level, and support as well. So again, just a holistic maybe use case around highly regulated entities, and the required level of investment and support for proactive threat defense. I know that's a team we're running out here, but quick, I just wanted to open up. Kim, Bill, Scott, any kind of reactions or insight for clients on this concept here?
For me, this use case that we're looking at right here, I think is it's probably the most real world one of the ones we've looked at. And I think it speaks really well to Scott's earlier comment of you can't just buy security. This one right here shows you that it really is a full encompassing experience. You have to have expertise and support, hardware, software, things like that. And working with an MSP like ourselves who are partnered with folks like SentinelOne, we can help deliver all of those pieces in one bucket for you that will address this very scenario. So I personally view this one as like a beautiful conclusion of this was the whole story. This one shows the whole story of Lightedge and SentinelOne right here.
Yeah, a real world scenario that actually comes to mind with this one is the SolarWinds attack. Okay. It impacted so many businesses around the world just simply because that an attacker was able to, create a malicious upload or update to that Orion, that Orion service. And the amount of havoc that they were able to wreak was just incredible, very, very rapidly. And SentinelOne was one of the few services that was actually able to detect that right out of the box without any changes being made, because of the behavioral based detections that we actually utilize.
Well said. Well, thank you for running through the use cases there. I think Kim, I think we're going to head towards yes, exactly this. Maybe a quick summary. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. So this one right here, this shows us everything that I believe our group story tells together. Through this partnership with this service offering that we have, through the 3 tiers that we've walked through today. As a client of Lightedge, you will gain all of these items here for your cybersecurity needs. You're going to see that unified platform experience. It's going to make your security more consistent across the board. Because of the cloud native technology that's used and the automated technology, flexible deployment. Flexible deployments are an achievable thing. SentinelOne has proven to be cloud ready. They've proven to have the expertise and the best in class. So the partnership here, it makes sense. It's the best for us, the best for our clients, and it absolutely makes us, I think, market standard outers. I'm going to make that word up. It makes us shine.
Well said. Bill, Scott, any closing thoughts here as we're wrapping this up?
Bill, go ahead.
No, like Lightedge itself, we use SentinelOne. right? Like we are drinking our champagne here. We use it every day. It provides valuable insight into my team so that we can rapidly respond to some of those more manual tasks that we've spoken about earlier during this presentation. And then the automated pieces of it where the agent is doing its job has been invaluable across the board.
Awesome. Well said. And I like the idea of champagne. Maybe we'll have to think about, mimosas on the next webinar or something like that. So well said, Scott. Scott, I thank you for hopping on. We immensely value the partnership. Any other closing thoughts as we kind of wrap this up and head into a tee up for the next webinar?
Yeah, and that's really that, at SentinelOne, we really do value our partners very, very much. And we've had our MSSP program for a very long time, and we do dedicate a lot of resources, not just myself, but also Eric and the rest of the team. And we are 1,000,000% in your corner. We're here when you need us. And, it's a pleasure to work with partners like you.
Likewise, appreciate that.
And audience, if there's any final questions, we can give it a quick minute here. If there's anything to wrap up, I want to make sure we're hitting anything that's still out there. We'll give it a second here. I don't think there's any more coming in. Well, thank you all for hopping in. As you can see, we'll be introducing the Lightedge SIM next. Appreciate Kim, Bill, Scott. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for hopping on. For all of you clients and prospects out there, likewise, thanks for your time today. We look forward to talking again soon.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.